Good morning, everyone. So, our report is about the urban poverty and disorder. The reporters are me, myself, Kyra Lahot, Partosa Maria Katrina, Partosa F. Marie, and Ismael Al Zihad. Unruly Cities, the Heterogeneity of Cities. It is one of series of books entitled Understanding Cities that takes a new look at cities. Typically, the history of cities is charted from the rise and fall of ancient cities such as Athens and Rome, through the rise of medieval cities, and finally to the sprawling postmodern cities of today. The future of cities is then extrapolated on the base of historical vision, usually that urban areas will continue to sprawl across the surface of the earth, eventually joining up to form 100-mile or mega cities. The analysis developed in this series is, however, radically different. Cities like nowhere else present a series of seemingly insoluble problems. Periodically, they seem to be in crisis. The problem take any forms as ever more people live in the crowded cities. Services fail to provide for their basic needs as poverty depends. People adopt survival strategies that others consider illegal or immoral. As tension within the cities rise, people take to the streets to protest. We could go on and on. Alternatively, cities can be seen as the crisis. As they sprawl across the face of the earth, cities are disordering the environment through their consumption of raw materials or through deadly, uncontainably emissions as stocks exchange crash, bounce and crash again. People are thrown out of the work in places seemingly untouched by urban finances, and sometimes even the world is plunged into unexpected recession. Cities then seem to be genuinely unruly, and they appear to be growing uncontrollably, exacerbating already seemingly unmanageable social tension.
For the purpose of the book, we can identify six types of poverty. First is the situational. Poverty is generally caused by a sudden crisis or loss and is often temporary. Events causing situational poverty includes environmental disasters, divorce, or even health problems. Second is generational poverty. It occurs in families where at least two generations has been born into poverty. Families living in this type of poverty are not equipped with the tools to move out of their situations. Third one is absolute poverty. It involves a scarcity of such necessities as shelter, running water, and food. Families who live in an absolute poverty tend to focus on day-to-day survival. Fourth is relative poverty. Refers to the economic status of a family where income is insufficient to meet its society's average standard of living. Rural poverty. It occurs in non-metropolitan areas with populations below 50,000 people. Lastly is urban poverty. It occurs in metropolitan areas with population of at least 50,000 people. The urban poor deal with a complex aggregate of chronic and acute stressors including violence, crowding, and noise, and are dependent on often inadequate large city services. Urban disorders has now become a center of public policy. Senate on 1970 viewed so-called disorder as the manifestation of social diversity of a place where people come from different racial, ethnic, social, and economic backgrounds. In order to understand cities, we argue that it is necessary to rethink their geography. This is more than simply extending the range of cities considered beyond the London, New York, Los Angeles axis, whether from Sao pa- sorry, Sao Paulo to Sydney, from Manchester to Moscow. It also involves using a geographical imagination to understand how cities are produced, on the one hand, in the context of social relations that stretch beyond the city, and on the other, by the intersection of social relations within the city. Though the series were teased out, for example, the ways in which cities brings people from different backgrounds into close proximity, how the juxtaposition of different people and activities in cities can range, and after social interactions, how this juxtapositions can result in or result from urban conflicts and tensions, how different parts of cities are connected to or disconnected from or other cities, how people network within and between cities. Now, F. Marie Partosa will continue their report. Thank you.
We can begin to glimpse something else about the unruly city. It's not just that we find another in one place and disorder in another, but that there is an internal relationship, a tension may be between the two. Take a gate community for example. On the one hand, the building of such segregated urban space in very different circumstances has commonly been prompted by a sense that the city is disordered and that the only way to provide safe, habitable neighborhoods is to gate out the threatening elements of the city. Building such individuals' urban areas is one thing, but in a variety of situations has frequently been sparked by an impression that the city is chaotic and getting out the dangerous component of the city is the only way to create safe, livable neighborhoods. On the other hand, these reminds have tendency to make people feel like the outside world is even more scary and uncontrollable. More than this, the apparent exclusively of the such neighborhoods feels hearted towards them and the residents who lives there. Additionally, the wall's internal diseases cannot be replied by the gates. They can in facts that use to limit escape. Understanding what it means to say that the city is unruly or not, thus begins to open and questions about the differentiation of urban space, about the ways in which people are brought and disorders that arise from the intricacies of social relationship and their integral speciality. Such questions are not new if considered separately, but perhaps if these questions are brought together, it will be possible to offer a new way of understanding cities. People who are attempting to comprehend and appreciate distinctive aspects of cities, this heterogeneity, their densities, their intensities, and their seemingly unruly nature have largely focused on the idea that cities are characterized by processes that produce unique urban areas. We can see, for example, that inequalities between the rich and the poor within any one city will often reveal themselves in stark differences between rich and poor areas, such as between the Gold Coast and the slum. In 1930s Chicago, or between the rich and the suburbs and shanty town of Istanbul or New Delhi. Clearly, the juxtapositions of the extremes within many cities has much to do with the unevenness of power relationship. By considering the specialities of the social interactions that result in, the author of this book are able to identify some quite unexpected problems in a differentiated urban landscape. For instance, it is possible to demonstrate how gated areas or wealthy suburbs are extremely prone and open to the outside world by following the connections between them and the rest of the city, whether in Johannesburg, Los Angeles, or Sao Paulo.
Suggested that there are two opposing response to these questions. Someone believe that cities will be more order and they have
Ganan po kumukaon ng durian.
soft outing to fight that the main truth wings more ordering citizen can be produce a physical and sociality. In many ways, this store being with the work of the 18th century urban planning Ebenezer Howard, pasted with the appealing urban condition of Victorian citizen in both Britain and America. Howard sought out a solution to the problem of squalor, sickness, and poverty. Its plan for a good city are important for this book because we see how abuse of soap, soap ordering plan can be an tendency toward what salt order the plan can be
Na, hindi ka balik-balik.
insensitive
Mag-isip na si Cairo, edit na.
somewhere out of the definition of urban space question arises about the untrulness of cities and what is to be done about urban life. In broad term, we can be suggested that there are two opposing opposing response to these questions. Someone believe that cities should be more ordering and they have so south tend to find that means truth wings more ordering cities can be produce physical and social. Next is many ways the store being with the work of the 18th century. Urban planning Ebenezer toward pasted with the applying urban constitution of Victorian cities and both Britain America. Toward the southwest solution to the problem of sickness and providing his plan for a good city are important. For this book, because we see how abuse of ordered plan can be tendency toward was attempting to detail with the heterogeneity and inequalities of Victoria cities by the density them and relativity them to then in some way as product depicted urban space that was equitable in environmental, social, and economicality.
Truly Cities argues that cities are open to many forms of order and in disorder, both from within the city and outside. They represent cities' potential as well as their problems, It challenges the assumption that cities are threatened by disorder from below and that they might be ruled by order imposed from above. The history of cities is charted from the rise and fall of ancient such as Athens and Rome, through the rise of medieval cities such as Antwerp and Naples, onto the spectacular growth of cities during the Industrial Revolution and the age such as London and Paris, and finally to the sprawling postmodern cities of today, normally exemplified by Los Angeles. Manila today is one of the densest cities in the world, notable as much for its unruly physical growth as for its economic expansion. Devastated by Japanese occupation during World War II, the city urbanized rapidly after 1945. Rural migrants poured into the capital in desperate search of work and food. They settled on the slimmest margins of land, and when there was none, they built makeshift homes on stilts above Manila Bay, the Pasig River, and its tributaries.